Hey guys, Cyclone here, and I got this post removed from the PoE community. They removed me and hid this post. I actually thought that I got some really great answers from this question, and so mission accomplished. I was not looking to have this be a liked post or popular, but I got some traction on it, which is great. That was the whole point. Uh, would you play PoE if trade was removed? And I did mention SSF, but you could play, shared self found, which is how I like to play ARPGs. But point is, I wanted to ask this hypothetical, and I got a wide range of responses before they shut down the post because unfortunately, this community is very, very particular and loyal to the idea that this is the greatest game ever made, and that trade is the holy grail of experiences. So if you question people's enjoyment of the game or anything like that, typically they remove your post. But this was to put people in the shoes of this hypothetical situation and just see what they would say. Wide range of responses here. Um, some people would say, here, first, this is a mindset more people need to value. You can enjoy PoE or any game and stop worrying about others. That's the most, I would honestly say that's the most important response on this entire thread. That's true for every game. And these social forums get usually caught up in how impressive people can be and how impressive. But a game is made up of thousands of people, and they all have different experiences. So we, a true community would value all of those experiences. Anyone who's still in campaign, all the way to an end game juicer doing the end bosses, right? Everyone is a part of the community. So I in this game too often anyone below a certain level is disregarded as a waste of space, and I think that that's a very toxic mindset. But what are you going to do in a game that prioritizes no lifing, right? I mean, this is all people value in their lives. So it's getting very sentimental to certain people, right? Don't worry about it, right? But also be realistic. If you want to achieve something, this game does require certain things from you. So it might not be the best game for you if your intention is to get it to a certain point a certain way. And if you don't like that methodology, you might want to look somewhere else. And that's just realistic, advice. Uh, if drop rates were buffed, but if they weren't, several people in this post said they would not play without trade, SSF, or just general shared found. I like shared found, self shared found, whatever you want to call it. But people would not play without trade. I like trade because every time I find a rare item, it has value, even if my build cannot use it. Again, this is where I didn't say this in the post, and I probably should have, because it's like typically here it's trade or SSF, but not shared self found, shared stash. I I should have mentioned that, and I didn't, so I failed in the post. I should have just said self found, not solo self found. Uh, and that was my mistake. But I think having value on gear is an interesting idea, that like trade makes the stuff you find have like a dollar value next to it, and that is encouraging to people. Um, and that's appealing, and that gets them into it. And frankly, that's what the game is built on. It's built on that mindset. So a lot of players lean towards that mindset. A lot of active players. But just again, seeing that this mindset is there and what they value is very interesting. Some people would play a lot less, but they would still play. Some people wouldn't play at all. So you get some people who are like, yeah, I'd still dabble, but I wouldn't go nearly as hard as I do, because you'd have to rely on the existing drops and things. Someone who's not super dedicated, they'd lose some variety without trade, of course. Someone would need to see what other games are available. And again, this is where I screwed up the post. If I play again, I like to collect items and make a second character's end game build through the gearing, and then try to level up a character to that next build. Right? That's how I play ARPGs. But I find this is not a common way of playing for a lot of people. I find that people don't talk about this. I'm a Grim Dawn player. I'm just gonna make that apparent. Uh, it's more common in Grim Dawn's community. We do this. You build a set from different pieces of gear and start planning a build like at level 1 before you go. So we're at PoE, like they do Path of Building. We have Grim Calculator. I don't really do the calculator all that much. I just put a thing of items together and theorize a build on the skill tree. But that is kind of how I plan and find value in my gear. So I look at value a little differently. And I think that's an interesting question. Like, where do you find value in the gear? And so people here, they look at a number next to the value. I look at the skills and prefixes and suffixes to find value. So again, little bit different mindset. But I muling is definitely something I didn't mention, and I probably should have, because again, in this community, it's like so trade or SSF. But no one talks about muling or standard or second play. Like, that mindset in this community isn't really there. So I didn't mention that, and I probably should have. That SSF simplifies content too much, but trade lives forever and can go, off the charts. Well, I think it's an interesting point, but it's actually crafting that gets the crazy stuff. That's how you get your crazy items. It's crafting. So you have to trade currency to craft. So it's actually crafting that makes it complex. So you don't necessarily, and I want to, you don't necessarily need trade to make the content more complicated. It's just an ends to a means. But you don't necessarily need it. The crafting system, the re-rolling of all the mods, that's what's complex about Path of Exile, ultimately. But trade lets a large percentage of players actually get crazy stuff. Most players aren't crafting endgame stuff. That's a very small percentage of players. I think it's probably 1% or less of dedicated players actually craft the really high-end stuff. By design, by the way. GGG does not want a large population doing that. So I think that's, and bots do it too. So there's a lot of bots and dedicated farming groups that do this. But I think that's a slightly off take because it's not talking about crafting, which I find interesting. That's the actual mechanic that changes the item. So I don't know. You could have a self-found game where the crafting is more accessible. And then you could start going crazy. Again, maybe it's like you still got to craft thousands of times, but it's there. It could happen. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting take, though. Better drop rates, of course. I agree. If you're looking to be a self-found drop-based player and you want to go through the game, then currently it is an absolute slog. Let's call a spade a spade. It takes eons to get good stuff, but someone said that like SSF until past Shaper. I mean, getting to Shaper and SSF is. I mean, yes, you got to play a very meta thing and do meta content, but yeah, normal players out there, yeah, good luck. Good luck getting to Shaper SSF. I wish you all the very best. That's a very good accomplishment, my guy. So nice job. This is what the devs like. These are all the things that the devs say. This person likes it exactly that way as well. And if that vision got removed, they wouldn't play the game anymore. Again, play less, but they still would. Maybe a little more casually. So again, I'm gonna go just let people like read this. You can pause it on some comments if you're interested. Some people were saying yes, and really positively saying yes. Someone went to Ruthless. I don't know about all this. People downvote liking Ruthless. I don't know. And the most fun I've had. So I'll end on this one because we were mostly talking about people who like trade, but there are people who like self-found style content, and it's more fun, and that's how they like it. And again, it's not as supported in this community, but that is a simple aspect of this genre. Like, why does loot drop at all in the first place? Why, if PoE was a game where you got a white base, PoE could exist as a game where there's only white bases, and you have to use the currency. Like, they don't have to drop magic or rare items. In fact, it's completely pointless for most people. They could just have a vendor with all the base items, and you could start upgrading them with currency. That might be, like, frankly, a more realistic process for Path of Exile as it exists today. So some people like finding crazy stuff. I tend to agree. But again, not everyone thinks that way, and that's okay. I'm interested to see what people think. And like building your character. This is how I look at it from a different mindset as well. Like, I'm building other playthroughs through the gear I find. So I'm not just thinking about this character. And again, I messed up. I should have said self-found and shared stash. But, you know, I'm looking at value for other ideas. I've always wanted to try this skill and see how good I could make it. Oh, okay, I found a piece of gear that could make that skill actually viable, perhaps. Maybe, maybe not, but it could be cool. So, building your character. Again, zero to hero and playing solo. Right. I kind of agree with that as well. This guy hates trading. It's a time sink. I still play in Trade League to party, but never trade due to the fact, yeah. So again, like, there are some people who don't like trade at all. A couple posts said that. It's not as common of a take in this community, and frankly, those posts get destroyed. But, uh, yep. So there we go. Thought this was interesting. I think, again, I got some thoughts out. Oh, and only if the death penalty was removed. So, like, he doesn't mind playing, but if the death penalty was the experience loss was removed, an interesting point. Grinding Gear Games, hello. Grim Dawn, you recover your EXP, but frankly, at Grim Dawn, you reach level 100. I mean, Grim, if you can't reach level 100 in Grim Dawn, we have to have a chat. Because you can just farm campaign content to get to level 100. But in PoE, you can't do that. So I think, again, another mindset is this game actually pushes you down by playing regular stuff. But anyway, that's it. Thought it was an interesting post. I got some interesting replies. And goodbye, PoE community. It was nice knowing you, even though I never really posted or ever. So take care.